Welcome back, everyone, to Frenzy Extra. I'm joined here by the assistant sports editor for the Telegram and Gazette and Home Team Magazine, Jim Wilson. Each and every week, Willie will break down some games and a lot of them to talk about now. Upset Saturday.
Wow. Well, you know, it was a great weekend because, you know, I wrote in the blog last night, I don't know if it was Upset Saturday because you look at those games, you know, if Wachusett beating Leominster really an upset? On paper, maybe because they weren't ranked, but Wachusett is a great team so far this year. When you take away their loss to a Neshoba and Fitchburg, that's a pretty good season for them so far.
Yeah, it is. It is a good season. St. John's, Shrewsbury beating St. John's for the first time since 2007. And this is a Shrewsbury team, like the last couple years, it seems like they've come into the season with a lot more hype than they had this year. This year, they kind of flew under the radar, but all of a sudden, look at some of the teams they've beaten. Doherty's a legitimate top 10 team. Then they beat St. John's in a shootout, and they do it a lot with running the ball. Terry Wallace is a throwing coach, but they've been running the ball very good with Zach Dionis and Nick Diliberto.
Exactly. I think I've been saying since the loss to Auburn in week 1, that's a good loss for Shrewsbury because you know what? Auburn's going to beat a lot of teams this year. So you look at that, you look at Shrewsbury, they hung with them for a little bit, and they just week 1 of the season. I know Terry doesn't like playing at week 1, but they got better from that game. Like you said, they had some great wins over Doherty. Shrewsbury's dangerous, and they ran the ball at St. John's, which is what Holy Name did against them in week 1. They put up 40 points on them. So that might be the secret right there, is just running at St. John's, because Shrewsbury, Alex Daniels had some great success, and they were able to win a shootout. But of course, St. John's come back in that fourth quarter, knocking on the door, 25 points. You knew, watching the game on our Twitter feed at TG Sports, we had, we look at, oh, here it comes. St. John's is coming back. They're going to get a couple quick touchdowns, and it'll all be over. Shrewsbury didn't let it happen. Jay Reynolds came back, ran a big kick, and celebrating Shrewsbury. Yeah, it's incredible, and it just adds to the rivalry. Now you look at Doherty and Holy Name, and this is one that you can say maybe this isn't an upset. Doherty, Luke Brennan, the quarterback Luke Brennan is a guy. You and I talked about quarterbacks early in the season. We should have put Luke Brennan on that. After watching him throw against Holy Name, the way he throws the ball over the top, great mechanics. I mean, he looks like a college-ready quarterback. On the run, throwing the ball to Noah Robinson, hitting him in stride in the end zone. He's a real weapon. Luke Brennan is a quarterback. He really had a coming-out party this week against Holy Name because, like you said, a lot of people knew about him. A lot of people watched him the last couple of years. He's done a great job under center for Doherty. He had a really great game against Holy Name, kept them in that game the first half. They got a good lead. Abdullah Webster did the rest second half, keeping that game out of reach. Doherty really had a statement game, beating Holy Name, puts them right back where they should be. These are games they haven't won in the past. They have a good season, but when they get to those tough games, they always fall short. You sort of saw that a little bit in the Shrewsbury game, a game they probably should have won. Shrewsbury was able to come back at them. Doherty's show that's not happening anymore. They get a big game in a couple weeks against the show, but that should be must-see.
Yeah, Webster's averaging 8 yards a carry. Brennan's throwing for 774 yards, and credit the defense because they're the first team to slow down. I mean, not completely stop because you're not going to stop Curon Wright, but Curon Wright averaging 12, 13 yards a carry. They held him to about 5 yards a carry, so credit that Doherty defense, too.
Exactly. I mean, like you said, you can't, we talk about it the last couple of weeks now, you can't let Curon Wright break a game open with a big, long run. He didn't do that. He got his yardage. He's going to get his yardage, but they didn't let that game, he didn't let him come back and get Doherty back into that game.
Yeah, they put a parachute on him. The Wachusett game, Wachusett-Leominster, you talked about it right off the bat. Is it an upset? Maybe not. Wachusett's played some tough teams, and you look at their losses. Neshoba, we'll get into whether or not they're number one or Auburn's number one a little later. But this is a team in Wachusett that has played some good teams here and some top teams, and now they get a huge win for the program. This might be just what those kids need confidence-wise.
Exactly. I think they've been flying under the radar. When's the last time you said about Wachusett flying under the radar? They love it.
Right.
They don't want anybody talking about them. They
true.
just keep it quiet. We're just an average team, punching our time cards and going to work.
Yep.
And I was more impressed with Wachusett being able to do what they did against Leominster after St. John's. And St. John's just took it to them. And I'm sure Mike Dubzinski and that staff will be the first to tell you they got embarrassed in that game with the defensive side of the ball because St. John's pretty much scored when it wanted to. To come back and put that game behind him, and Mike Dubzinski's always talking about that's in the past. Doesn't want to talk about the perfect season or Super Bowl wins. Doesn't want to talk to last week's win. But they forgot about that game really quick and showed Leominster they're still one of the most dangerous teams in Division I.
And it's easier said than done when you're talking about high school players or even college and pro players. You get it taken to you in 1 week to kind of just wash that down the drain when you take a shower and move on to the next week. That's not easy to do. And Wachusett did it. Credit to the kids, credit to the coaching staff as well. Auburn, Shepherd Hill, you and I were both at that game. This game was won up front in the pits, on the line, and the Auburn line just was dominant.
Auburn was able to do what they wanted to do with that ball. You ran the ball with Tyler Desjardins. They were able to throw the ball over the field when they needed to pick up some big yards. That line gave them a good push. They got that extra couple yards off the side of the ball. That's a big win for Auburn. I'm not shocked they won, but to have their JVs in the end of the game against Shepherd Hill, that was impressive.
Yeah, and defensively, too. They controlled the line of scrimmage defensively, and when you can do that, you can stop the double wing attack, and that's what they did. They held their gaps, and they played assignment football. Looking at the top 10 now. So now you have you have that argument, who's really number one. You and I, well, I won't say who you voted for. I have voted for Auburn all year long as number one. They're still my number one team. They certainly have done nothing to lose that spot.
Right.
Neshoba, people that have had them number one, I don't think they've done anything to lose that spot. You know, people talk, oh, they lost to Marlboro by 2 touchdowns. Marlboro's a good team. If you don't know that, you haven't watched Central Mass football. And you look at who Marlboro's played.
Right.
Lost to Shrewsbury, lost to Doherty, 2 top 10 teams, lose to Central Catholic. Good team from the East, playing BC High this week. You know, I mean, Marlboro's tough. They're always tough.
That's exactly right. That's why I don't think I've had Auburn number one too, since day one. So I think Auburn's a good team. That being said, if you had, like you said, if you had Neshoba number one, they did not do anything to lose that number one spot. They have a great season so far. If they get past Doherty in a couple weeks, I see them going to the playoffs with a perfect record. They have a long winning streak, 18 games, 19 games coming up. Could be if they work hard at it. They should really be one of the better teams in Central Mass, regardless of that game. And the Marlboro game, it was one of those halftime adjustments. They came back, they did what they needed to do. Ojukwu took over. They had some great running backs. You know, they really got showcase Eli Williams. They did the job. They got the win. What's wrong with that?
Right. And Sean Mahoney's a great coach over at Marlboro. Proved that when he was at Shrewsbury, when he was at Assumption coaching over there. Looking at some teams that are kind of smaller teams, so they don't get a lot of publicity. Blackstone Valley Tech, the great season they're having, 5-0. West Boylston's 5-0. Bay Path and Assabet. 4 teams that are having great seasons.
All the lunch pail groups. They just, I think West Boylston, I love that story. I've been a fan of what they've been doing for years. They're 5-0 for the first time since '91. If they win this weekend, they're 6-0 for the first time since '89. That's some good work. Because every year, I talked a little bit about Doherty winning those games, that they haven't won in the past. West Boylston beating Gansett last weekend for the first time in forever. That was a huge win for that program, a big statement win for those guys over there. I think Brian Hayes is one of the best players you're going to see all year. He can do it all, on defense and in receiver. He's averaging about 26 yards a catch. That's phenomenal. They have some weapons over in West Boylston.
Yeah, Stephen Gould, the quarterback's very good as well. 30 seconds or so left. Blackstone Valley Tech. Dan Avery burst on the scene. Last year, great quarterback. He's got 654 yards. They got Sean Wilkins with 3 interceptions. He's just an athlete out there making plays on both sides of the ball.
Wilkins, both sides, like you said, both sides of the ball, 3 interceptions. He leads the team in receiving. He's a great weapon for Avery to have. Taylor Hanson's a very good running back. So they don't have to. They have to worry about him before they get people out in the receivers. That's, what Valley Tech, that's going to be a great season to watch.
You talk about great coaches. Al Denby doing another great job with Bay Path, and Rob McCann doing another great job with Assabet Valley Tech. Well, I think we're about out of time again, Willie. You and I could go on for another half hour.
We
easily,
need the time.
And we probably will when the
Filibuster.
camera shuts off. But hey, we'll do it again next week.
Can't wait.
That's Jim Wilson, assistant sports editor from the Telegram and Gazette and Home Team Magazine. The Frenzy Extra will continue right after this.